My name's Anthony. Before working here at LPI, I worked in shops that fabricated stone digitally. And I've worked in the field and I've done several thousand templates. Today, this session is really for anyone that takes those finished templates from the field and sends off paperwork to sales staff or customers for review, and anyone getting those CAD, typically DXF files, to CNC machinery for production. We want to get all those production-ready templates exported as CAD files and CNC saws, and LT3Raptor has a whole new set of tools that help streamline that process, where our legacy software really was just for that on-site capture. So there's a whole new set of tools, and some of you haven't maybe seen that yet, and that's what we're going to review today. So we're going to talk about, again, starting with the production-ready drawing and exporting paperwork and those CAD files. Right? We're going to talk about some of the LPI Cloud settings. So you could create some settings in the companion website, and those settings can be distributed to your whole team. We're going to look at how to maybe optimize some of your CAD settings for different types of machinery. Okay? And if you haven't yet, we really recommend getting LT3Raptor installed on office computers and not just the template tablets. That way, with a cloud connection, those jobs get shared really easily to the office. And then at those bigger desktop computers that usually have a much bigger monitor, it's just really nice to be able to export those paperwork, make the last set of revisions on those computers. Okay. Also, I'm going to switch over onto another screen here. Here's our home screen. Okay, when we start LT3Raptor, it looks like this. You should be able to come down to our knowledge hub where we keep little links for training videos and things like that. There's a button in the upper right that toggles this panel on the bottom on and off. There's even a file that I uploaded last night. You should be able to click on this, and it should take you to a. You should be able to download this as a from my Google Drive and be able to get a project you can follow along with. Or I'd recommend just duplicating a job on your computer or in your cloud that you can follow along with, ideally as well. All right. So I'm going to get back into LT3Raptor. So when you launch the software, we get this home screen, we end up with a big list of jobs. And over here, we have different status, different job workflow statuses that you can use. So if I'm in the field as a templater and I have a finished drawing, a finished job that's ready for the office, I can mark that as ready for them. And the office can see that status has changed. You can grab it and run with your next steps. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this project. So I'll click into this. Okay. And I've got one thing I want to show you. If you haven't used this on a desktop yet, if you have a larger screen real estate than the tablets. Now on the little computers, I turn it off because I want all that screen real estate for my drawings. Okay. I recommend coming up to, if you're on a desktop computer, come up to View. There's a whole bunch of options in here. I really like this at a desktop. Turn on your page bar, and at a glance, you can see quickly all the different rooms that were captured. Right? It's a lot easier if you weren't the person there at that job to see the entire job there. It's really easy to navigate between those. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about just briefly just the overall screen layout. Okay. If you are new to LT3Raptor, I think it helps just high level what's happening. So our home button brings us back to that home screen, that big list of jobs. We're going to do a job check later. This is like a spell checker for your drawings. I'm actually not great at spelling, right? So I'm grateful for autocorrect and email and text messages. We have something like that in your software here. Okay. We also can navigate and create new pages here. Across the top, we have 4 primary tabs that get you through the different tasks in the software. In a lot of ways, we're going to be talking about templating today. This is where we, in the field, capture and complete your drawing. And we're going to talk about some of the features you might use to make minor revisions and update and sweeten up that drawing for your job paperwork. Okay? Details, this would be all the kind of like the text-based information about that job. So is there a job name, a job number? We call that job reference, but a lot of fabricators use this as a job number. Okay. And I've got a bunch of different information I've pre-populated here. If you want to add different forms, we're actually working on a big update to checklists and customer agreements that you'll be able to build in the cloud very soon. So stay tuned for new ways to add forms. I want to talk briefly about how to add material, right? So if you want to add a material name, I'd click on this, we put in a material name. Here's a key thing I want you to see. If we haven't told you, it's not super clear, but this is faster than our legacy app. You want to click, once you put the information in, assign this to any of the pages, right? I'll hit close because we already have a material. If I come back to overview, this material, I put a name in the material and I've attached it to those pages, right? We could do the same with cutouts, right? I've got some specifications we made for the kitchen sink. I've attached it to that page. The vanity sinks, in this case, that the customer picked out, I've attached the vanity sink to these pages, right? Again, look out for this blue and white plus button, all right? Notes for tear out, general notes. If you have customer agreements, a lot of these things you'll build out here, all right? I'll pause real quick. David, you've got a question?
Yes. So my question would be, when we add the material in the detail section, would that be helping when we send it out for fabrication? Would that be in a note or something?
Yes. So as we go through in-job details, this will fill out all of that relevant information in your shop drawings, in your paperwork, and all your documentation. Okay. So, you know, if I want on the shop sheet it to say what the material name is and what sinks were selected in the sidebar, and later on we're going to use over here. I just set up a printer yesterday. I'm going to give you a quick demo on what that looks like at the end, and it would show in your shop stickers, we call them StoneTags. It'll show material name, job number, so you can track those parts throughout your process, right? So a lot of the information you would put in, you'd put that here in the details tab, all right?
All right, hopefully that'll sound a little clearer. Okay, so job details. When I'm on the job site, I like to take photos. Something that's new in this software compared to the legacy software, I like to take photos and actually assign it to each measure page. So it's really clear if someone's going through in the office, they haven't been at the job site. Those photos are all attached to each measure page. So especially when you get vanities that look like they're almost the same, but they're in different rooms, you have a revision, you know which photo goes to which drawing, which becomes really helpful. The nesting tab, we're not going to really go over today. We're going to save that for our part 2, which is next week at the same time. There's some advanced features in there. So I'm going to come back to the templating tab, okay? I also want to point out you have quick actions. These are customizable shortcuts. So those commonly used features, those tools, you can build that out here. Any tool I want, I just hit the add button, it'll pop that in there. Also, I haven't made any changes to this drawing yet, but undo and redo. Undo is my favorite button in the whole software, okay? I don't want you to be afraid to try something new, and if it doesn't do what you want, just hit the undo button, right? That's a great way to experiment with different tools and try things. Undo is one of the most valuable buttons in the whole software, okay? as we come down this right side, we have several buttons. And as we click into each one, you see the row just next to it has several tools you can pick. So I like to use just a little analogy here, right? I'm a visual person. So in my garage, I've got a big toolbox with a bunch of different drawers. And when I'm done with changing my oil or doing whatever project, if I put my tools away in the right drawer, I easily know where they are. I've got a drawer with sockets, a drawer with open-end wrenches, hammers, screwdrivers, so on and so forth. That's the analogy I like to use with this row of buttons here, okay? So the first step is pick one of these, right? Each one has a default, so we draw lines a lot. That's the default in the draw action, right? So let's say I want to do an offset. I can offset a single element or an edge. We'll talk about edge detection later, right? Then I'd want to pick the CAD layer. We'll simply call them colors often. One of the superpowers of this software is these aren't just CAD layers. LT3Raptor actually attaches meaning to each of these colors or CAD layers. Again, we call them edge styles because the software understands the difference between a cabinet, a wall, finished edges, seams, miters, so on and so forth. Okay, so it's important to work in the right color. So step one is open the drawer, pick your tool, get your color, and the last thing is I want you to look at the tool options. Right, sometimes we'll call this our command bar up at the top. Now, by default, this is set at the top. JT and some of JT's customers, they have this set at the bottom. You can rearrange all these panels, but by default, hey, how much do I want to offset? I put that here. Do I want to keep the original? Do I want to change the color or not? In our legacy app, you got a big pop-up that happened right in the middle of your drawing area. So we move this up out of the way so it's always accessible. And it's just more fluid to go through. But if you're new to the LT3Raptor application, I want you to be in the habit of looking at these options so you do exactly what you want with that tool. So again, step one, step two, step three, and step four is your tool option. So it's kind of cheesy, but I want you to think of being a rock drummer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. As you get kind of the flow of the software, and after a little while, you won't have to think of 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll just be fluid. It's a great way to get faster. Okay. Another thing I like to point out: if you're at a desktop and you have a keyboard, okay, I'm going to come up to View again. Keyboard shortcuts. If I turn on this, we'll get a little overlay that shows the default keyboard shortcuts. You can just hit a button and get into most of these tools, right? Also, the quick actions will by default be assigned to your row of numbers, or hit shift, like I run out, I have 1 through 0, we run out. So now you can hit shift and 1, which is the exclamation point. And I can pull up this, I can invoke this tool really quickly. And this is all customizable per computer, right? Another thing that I want to talk about with the keyboard shortcuts is if you want to switch colors easily, just hit the letter C and then like this, and then just hit the appropriate number. Okay. And that would, if I just hit 2, now I'm there and it can work in that color. So I recommend kind of getting used to the software, mouse around in the beginning, and then turn on keyboard shortcuts. This is all editable in your settings. You can modify that as you need. So those are a couple of things just how to navigate the software and be able to get the work done quickly. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is the idea of a production-ready template. And what I've seen in my own work, and I've seen working with lots of different shops. So I'm out of Phoenix, but I've traveled around and worked with several different fabricators, mainly throughout the Western US. But the best way to succeed at this weird thing that we do, which is create highly detailed CAD drawings in the field and communicate that with the team so big robot CNC saws and routers can make things just right, I recommend whoever's doing the template finishes the template as much as possible. Little details, little things. It's best to finish it right there on the job site. What that does is that eliminates questions. It eliminates someone else later in the process needing to make some assumption. And I like to finish that drawing if I'm templating and scan around the room and look and see if there's any little detail I maybe forgot. Do I need a return, right, for that finished edge to die correctly around this wall? Does the sink fit in the cabinet? Those kinds of things, right? Those are some of the things I want you to think about with your team so you have a production-ready template from the field, and it just reduces questions as you move into production. Okay, so let's hop back into the screen here, and I want to show you a couple of things. In order to kind of move efficiently, you'll see that there's this little issue found, little kind of like alert symbol that's on a couple of our pages, right? And I talked about the spell checker for your drawings. That's this check, right? If I hit this button, the software is actually, because it understands the CAD layers, it's scanning around the drawing and will suggest some of the things that we need to do. In this case, it's a really common little tiny mistake. I left an open end here. If we click on element fillet issue, if I select it, it will suggest that change, right? And often all I need to do is hit fix now, okay? We get a little green check mark. This is now a complete closed cuttable shape, right? Same thing with this kitchen, okay? If we come in here, I want to show you a couple things. If we come in here and there's like a little gap, right? So again, we could just manually fillet this, but again, I'll use the job check. And there's several different things it's recommending. Hey, let's fillet the wall and flat polish elements. Again, the software understands the geometry and can help close some of those little, they're visible in this one. I did that on purpose, but often there's those tiny itty bitty little gaps that need to be closed. This will help you figure those out. Down here, I don't have the correct edge style on this wall. So let's look at that one manually, because I want to talk about another important thing, which is edge detection, okay? Edge detection is where the software understands, I'll zoom in on this wall, all right, and I'll use the color revise function. Let's pretend we needed to revise this to I'll just pull finished here. If we track along this wall, you can see the individual line segments. For example, there's a big hump in the wall right here, okay? Now the software understands this as an edge. So many different places in the software, you'll have an edge mode, which you can turn on or off. So if I have this off, we can change each individual segment, but the vast majority of the time what I want to do is change this entire edge. So if we turn edge detection on, you'll see that entire edge would highlight, and the software understands anytime you have several line segments and they're pretty close to being straight, that can be an edge, right? So the vast majority of the time I leave that on. If I need to do a quick little edit at a panel notch or something, I might flip that off for a moment, revise that color. I tend to flip edge mode back on. That's how I find I'm fastest and most fluid in the software. But if we haven't told you what edge detection is yet, it's going to feel like it's working against you. So I wanted to take a minute and talk about edge detection. Edge detection also allows a lot of the other tools that we're going to see later, one-touch dimensions, one-touch splash, some of those speedy features. Okay, they're based on edge detection. All right, so as we get back in here, all right, I'm going to come down to this wall, which is technically the wrong color. The software doesn't understand this as a cuttable shape yet. So let's color, revise. I want that to be a wall. We click on that. Okay. And what else do we need to fix? All right. So undershoot element, the seam, it knows the seam is too short, but I want to change the seams, right? Let's cancel out of the job check. Okay. because I want to show you how we can make a few revisions, right? Let's say the templater came in and kind of drew these seams in, and maybe that's not what's ideal for our vein matching, right? Templater doesn't maybe have an idea of that. So let's come into draw. And if we come down to the bottom, we have seam line. All right. This is a tool where I actually don't need to select the color. It'll automatically go to whatever the first theme edge style is in your list. So you actually can skip this one here. But I do want to talk about some of the different seam tools, right? Euro seams, often that's used if you have CNC routers that are finishing all the way around your top. But I want to start with perpendicular and extended. I want to talk about how these two are different so you can change them quickly and easily. I'm going to start by erasing these, okay? All right, so now we have closed shapes. Again, we get the green check mark. Again, draw, come down to seam line. So my little panel's in the way. Here we go. So I want to talk about a extended seam. Extended seam would be if I wanted to take this blue line, we'll imagine this is just a 3 cm eased edge. Right? If we want the saw to keep cutting and continue that line straight, even though this corner is not 90 degrees, we'd select that, look on the wall, and between the seam and this edge, that'll be 180 degrees. By comparison, perpendicular, right? If I wanted to, I could select this snap point. I want to be closer to this line, right? Select here, then go to the wall. This finished edge and this seam on the inside here are 90 degrees. So I could show you that right here. They're exactly 90 degrees, okay? So we've added a couple seams. Let's take a look at anything else we might want to do. I want to show you that there's some cool dimensioning tools in here, right? Distance. Distance is a way that I can check dimensions and sizes without putting annotations or putting additional elements in our drawing. So if I just really quickly wanted to check, from this point to this point, I can see that. We could toggle on dimensions all over the drawing. That's best. I mostly will use this in the field with my raw capture. Okay. If we're going to add things into the drawing, we'd use label. So label, the default tool there is we would label an edge. Again, using edge detection, if I just tap just outside of this wall line, it knows, even though those are several connected small line segments, it treats them as an edge, and we get a quick theme. A tool that I absolutely love coming from the classic software is parallel. Right, so if I want to pull a dimension from our seam, our sync center line to the wall, I can click on one geometry, another geometry that's close to parallel, and it'll give us, based on the endpoints and the midpoint, parallel dimensions. And then I've just picked the one I want. I clicked a little bit off to the side there. I want to click here, here. Maybe I'll turn off our specific offset tool for a minute. Okay, and then that dimension would stay right there. Okay. Any questions about dimensioning, revising seams, things like that? I'm gonna pause for a second and see if anyone has any questions there. David, yes.
You said the parallel dimensions, they work until a certain degree, right?
Yes, if you get, they wouldn't work on an arc or a radius, for example, because there's nothing that would be parallel to that. If you get lines that are mostly close to each other, it'll pull endpoints and midpoints. There is a threshold, and I don't know exactly what that is off the top of my head, where if those two geometries are, if they're getting closer to being angular and meeting, it won't give you a parallel dimension. But it's really useful when I'm in, so legacy software, for example, if I had the seam going the first way before we changed it, I'd have to draw some kind of construction line to that wall to pull a dimension line for the shop. Now I can just do it in a couple taps. Okay. Does that help, David?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, play with it and see see how it works. Try it out. I do want to point out there is also in parallel a specific offset. So if I wanted to offset it, oops, sorry. Let me pull this screen back up. There's a specific offset button, which you'll see in many of the dimension tools. All right, if I click here and then here, with offset set to 2 inches, it would move it 2 inches up or down. Okay. All right, so I'll hit best fit. Also, any dimensions and notes and text that we leave inside a part, we'll see that later in some of the tools. Okay. So those are some of the final things I would do. This Templar, it was me. He was being lazy. Maybe went upstairs first and then went downstairs. Maybe we want to reorder those. In the page bar, it's really easy. I would just click and drag. Okay. And maybe I want this one down here. So the paper kind of makes sense. It kind of tells that, sounds cheesy, but kind of that story for the customer when they're getting their job packet to sign to go into production. Okay. Another tool I'd like to show you, and this is designed for any time we're getting into a project that has, in this case, a splash out of the stone or quartz. Lots of fabricators would spend time taking this scribed wall and cleaning up the geometry, okay, so that they can just cut it a little bit more efficiently, because once this gets covered with splash, you got a little room to play. So another tool I want to show you is draw scribe line. Okay. And there's a few different functions, a few different types to try here. I'm going to start with the offset with taper. Okay. Because this is a demo, I pumped this number a little bit larger than I'd have in the real world. I want you to see it on a, what might be a small video. Real world, the maximum depth I tend to set at 1/4, which means if the wall line gets moved more than 1/4, it'll give me a little error. So let's run through it and I'll show you what it does. All right, so we'll pick one line, pick the next. When we hit done, okay, we zoom in here. Let's take a look at what it did. All right, so it's maintained that original wall line, but converted it into a dash line that'll automatically get erased. Okay, but it's pulled our cut line in. All right, so now what we have is a straight rip that hits the hump in the wall, which I think is somewhere probably right about here. We have a straight rip from the corner almost all the way to the edge. So I'm going to switch the camera over here. So in this kitchen, this open end, if it's finished, that finished edge does need to die into the wall. It has to end right here. So the taper setting means that from this point, our cut line would taper in over 8 inches. Some fabricators will use 3 inches if they have a water jet, right? But the 8-inch, that might be just a single blade plunge and then a straight rip all the way to the corner, and the same thing on the other side. So let me switch back over. You can see what that looks like. Okay. So we have one straight rip until we get 8 inches away from this edge. So now we have just a couple straight cuts, and it's literally saving time to edit and saving time on your saw. Okay. We can do that again here. Done. It offsets, and they even updated the software so it trims the seam back that little fraction of an inch in most cases to your cut line. Okay. So scribe line, I think, is a really useful tool. Couple clicks, you cleaned up your drawings. Okay. It's something that in AutoCAD, some of the CAM software is just by comparison pretty clunky. I think it's fast and efficient here. Okay. Any questions about the scribe line? Todd.
I didn't see that taper on my thing.
Taper?
Yeah, the taper part where it says offset with taper.
Okay.
No, the tab. Oh, I see. Okay. I see.
Yep.
I was in single scribe tab.
Okay. Yep. Scribe tabs leave like a little,
I get
I'll call it a reverse notch, right? Rake is really handy. Play with this on like those vanities, especially those vanities that are like, locked in on, you have a wall on each side and a wall in the back. It'll just create a straight cut and just pull those back corners in, typically a 1/4 inch.
Really?
It's just nice and easy. And then the installers, they just slide it in, check their front overhang, put the splash on top, fast to cut, fast and easy to install.
Yeah.
I mean,
Worker makes little tabs. He goes
Yeah.
like inch from the end, and then he makes a tab in like 1/8 of an inch on each side. But if you don't put the backsplash on, then you're screwed.
correct. It's something that's worth talking about with a customer.
Backsplash, and you're like, oops.
Yep. I've doing lots of remodel projects. I'm talking with a customer. Hey, would you like a 4-inch typical splash out of your, whatever the color is? And they're like, yeah, right now, but later on I'm going to do a subway tile. I might put a note, do not scribe line. Say that again?
Can you set that rake? You said it goes from nothing to a 1/4 inch. Can you set it from nothing to 1/8 of an inch?
Yes. Yep. So let me do that. Rake. And then 1/4 inch. My vanity top here, I know it's got a really gnarly wall, so it wouldn't pass this, but I could try and show you. So I click on this and see how the line articulates a little. If I'm on this side, it would be pulling this end in. That's not what we want. So I go to the corner with the wall, it'll try and pull that in, pick a connected edge. But when I hit done, if it's a 1/4 inch, I just know that wall. It says, oh, it's going to intersect. It won't clear the wall. So I'd have to bump it up, in this case, a lot. So let me try.
Interesting.
I didn't test it on these, but these are wall to walls. It might work really well. So pick a wall. I want the back corner to come in. I want this and this. Done. All right. So as I zoom in, this corner still meets, as does this one. But now there's all sorts of installation room here.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why.
Leave the reference.
Drywallers hate us, but the back corners tend to be bigger than the front. I don't know why. That's just what happens. So rake tool, I think, is really useful and it just saves a ton of time. Let's do this one too. Let's see how it goes. This one, I want the top to come in, pick the back and the side. Done. And I might want to, revise these lengths because that's now going to be confusing. So edge, the splashes are this long, but now the wall is a little shorter. So that's a revision I think it makes sense to do in the paperwork. So your shop sees what you've revised everything to, but that's a lot easier to install and cut, right?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just, okay. So one other thing let's do, right? Oh, another question, Mark. Mark, if you're on mute, you might need to unmute yourself so we can.
I gotcha. Okay, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so when you're in that first mode, which was, I believe, taper,
Mm-hmm.
and then the lower top has 2 open ends, so that'll do like a taper on both ends. Then,
Correct. There's a taper by the range and a taper at the peninsula overhang as well. So this, it's in, there's a seam dividing them, but each top only has 2 cut lines now.
Got it.
Instead of, if you're using a 5-axis with maybe an incremental router, you've got to like clean that up so you can just saw cut it. Well, these tools should make that easier. Even fabricators that have the saw jet solution, they don't want to be water jetting all that stuff, right? Just as time and expense, right? So those tools should Play with those. Like I absolutely recommend copying some project that you have, right? So if we go to the home screen, I'll just tell you real quick. The three little dots here at the end, okay? These three little dots, if you click on them, you can duplicate a job, and I would just say, hey, this is a practice job or a test job, and play around with some of these tools and features, okay? I'm gonna go back into the one we're working on, okay? Any other questions or things that, as fabricators, digital craftspeople, that you would want to do maybe to these drawings that would make for clearer drawings, anything like that? I'm not going to go deep into it today. We do have separate like YouTube videos on our channel. Your cutout files, if we use drop in, all of these, if you're saving your drop-ins in the company drop-ins folder, that will sync for your whole team. Okay. The field computers, it's by default, it'll sync once a day instead of scanning every time they're trying to, you have a field person just uploading the template, right? But it'll keep everyone on the same page with what some of those files look like, right? So I could drop in a sync, and sometimes some fabricators are choosing to do that at the office. I kind of come from the school of thought of, as best I can, doing that at the job site. If there's a customer there, a homeowner in a remodel environment, I draw that in and have them sign on the drawings, right? So that's there the whole time. And I like to also, if it's a dual mount sync, I like to draw that big flange in there so we can see and verify that it clears a cabinet, okay? So let's say, I'm gonna hit cancel. Let's say, hey, we're happy with all this, right? It's about time to go into production, but we got a lot of parts that we're gonna have to track. So what I'd like to do is show you what we call label pieces. Go ahead, Mark.
Sorry, I didn't want to jump ahead, and I'm not sure if you're going to cover this, but I know in the legacy software, when you use the backsplash, create backsplash command or whatever, it'll orient the splash to the angle that wall's at.
Yes.
Is there a way to, is that the same with Raptor, or is there a setting to have them drawn vertical or horizontal?
To start with, it will draw it and just do a simple parallel offset from your edge. Yep. There are tools in the back end. When we get to our CNC saw page, there's actually a way to make a separate page that just lines up your splashes. And we'll see that again when we get into nesting next week. Because you want to just cut them in rows, is my guess.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Because sometimes we want to vein match, so we want to leave them close to the tops. And other times, we don't need a vein match, I don't know, it's a Blanco Orion or a whatever color, we just want it straight rips. Okay, so we'll be able to see that. Good question. Another thing I want to show you is in label, we have a label pieces. Okay, I'm going to bump this up to medium. And what this tool does, if you hit the three little dots right up here, okay, it's going to start by pulling whatever your page name is. And I can either, just for this drawing page, I can auto-generate. It'll count all those parts, and it's separating the seams, right, when it does this count. Or we could do this for the whole job, right? Auto-generate. Now, because we've already passed the job check and we have the green check mark in theory, right? The software knows how many parts there are on the whole job. So I could hit OK, and then just start numbering these parts. You can see how it kind of highlights each closed shape, right? For splashes, I tend to not go right in the center, but offset them to one end or the other a little bit. Okay. And then down here, I might want to change the page name to, maybe I'll use a small text. And oh, that one I kind of missed. I generally zoom in a little as I do this. Okay. But this numbering can just save your team a little time in their back-end processes. We'll see this pay off in a little bit. But you see how it highlights each closed shape. This is that template intelligence, that CAD intelligence engine at work, right? So now we've numbered our parts. Some companies don't do this in their paperwork that's going to the customer necessarily. They might save this for the following step, but I like to at least wanted to show it here. So once you're happy with everything that's in all your shop drawings or your template pages, often what I'll do is I'll start spitting out the paperwork that we need. So I'll come up to File, and then Save to Folder will kind of like batch export, right? So I'm going to do two separate passes here. One is I want to start with the paperwork. Now, a lot of fabricators turn off many of these other options, right? We have another video that goes through all these different options. But essentially, and forms will be new. You'll see more in that in the future here. The LT3 job file, I just leave that checked. That's not a time-consuming export. That's just a little backup file. That's a project file you can always come back to later. All the PDFs I want in this case, shop sheets. I'll show you what the manifest is and the job packet. With job packet selected, when we hit next, then the screen's going to say, what do you want in the job packet? And this is one master PDF that has many different elements in it. So maybe I want the forms, maybe I don't. I'm just going to leave this. It's a big export, so it takes a little longer. Which pages do I want? Yes, I want all those pages. Where they're going to go. This little check mark will automatically open the Windows Explorer window, so it's easy for me to access them, right? If you have a ton of photos, this takes a little longer. I am using a Surface tablet right now. A desktop computer tends to have a little bit more horsepower, right? It's not designed to be so battery efficient like these little tablets are, and it'll export often a little bit quicker. If I'm doing a commercial job that has a ton of photos, I give it a minute to export, right? So it's creating all of those PDF files, and it makes a folder, and it'll put everything in this job folder. So here's our project file, right? It's very rare I need it, but it's just kind of a cover your butt kind of file, right? And then I have a folder with our different PDFs, okay? So it's got the job number, whatever I name the job, and then it'll add, hey, manifest, job packet, and shop sheet. So if I click into the shop sheet first, right, we get a shop drawing. And this is where if I put in all that kind of job details stuff, I've got my sync model here. I've got the material name, all my page notes, all that stuff is here. So I have one PDF with 3 pages for the 3 template pages, right? So I'll close that one out. Let's look at the next one, which is the manifest. This one I think is really useful. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but I've been on projects where, hey, we loaded up everything as an installer, and we drove 3 hours away, and whoops, one of the splashes was still in the finishing area. It didn't make it on the A-frame, right? So the job manifest can list all the parts. It'll auto dimension the exterior, okay? If I have a dimension on the inside, this is that peninsula, right? I put a parallel dimension that shows it has a 10-inch overhang. Right? So that dimension's right there. This is just a list. And the way I have it set right now, per page, it'll list all those parts. Okay, so this is kind of useful, especially as you're gathering all the parts for a big project. Now let's look at the job packet. This is the bigger export. When we look at the job packet, right, it'll give us a summary of all the square footage, how many linear feet across all the template pages. Okay? If I have checklists and forms, again, I've got everything here. So we see a lot. Any general notes I made, the page notes all listed there. If a customer signed, right? I like to get a customer signature on the job site, right? And then again, our shop drawings are all in here. This might be a packet that I would give to a customer for their final sign off and getting payment and all those things, right? All the photos are there. Okay, everything we need all in one big giant PDF. Okay. Any questions about getting that paperwork exported? David, go ahead.
Yes, two questions. One of them would be, would we be able to add our own template for the shop sheets? Our own custom?
Great question.
Or is...
Right now, we have several options that are available to you. I'll show you what that looks like in the settings real quick. Okay. In settings, I could go to export settings. I could go to job. In our shop sheet, there's a little preview option of different layouts that we've pre-built. Okay. And here the balance is always how much drawing space do you want and how much space is needed for kind of those other job details, your logo, the little QR code that you can pull up for installers or in the field or whatever, right? And there's also a way, if you don't want any of that extra, those text kind of boxes, use this checkbox, use minimal drawing template. That's just the drawing itself without that extra information, that text-based or the job details information right here. Okay.
Okay, and
if you have a
one
specific shop, go ahead.
Oh, no, finish what you were saying, sir.
If you have a specific shop layout, we're open to hear what that looks like. The several templates that we have here really were based on, we gathered a bunch of different shop sheets from a bunch of different fabricators. Our old software, we would had different things we would do, but we tried to take a bunch of different shop layouts and make some that would fit just about everyone's needs. If there's something else you need, let us know. Okay.
Yeah, we're using currently one of your layouts. My question would be, are we able to update it, say like the logo right there with our logo, and how would we be able to do that?
Yes, the logo will update in the companion website, which is LPI Cloud, and then those are global settings that will get synchronized to all of the LT3Raptor computers across your organization.
Okay.
We can touch on that briefly closer to the end. All right.
Okay, and my final question would be, are we able to add pictures in the shop sheet packet?
The shop sheet, great question. The shop sheet, as a general rule, is supposed to be paperwork that you'd need for your team, whether it's your shop foreman, a sawyer, an installer, the sales or customer service, type staff. It should give them all the essential information they need to make that job. What you could do is export a job packet that only had shop sheet and the photos. So real quick, let me show you what that might look like. If I go into file, we could do, actually, let me see if we go to job packet, you also can print and export just from the print menu. If I go to job packet, and hey, I don't need most of these. I just want the shop sheet and the photo. All right, what photos do I want? I want all the photos. And then in just a minute, photos are the thing that probably takes the longest for the export to finish as it renders those photos. Something I really like is you have the ability in the field or after the fact, you can put little notes right on the photos, little arrows and call outs. Okay. So if we look at job packet now, and notice this one was saved just a little bit later. I just have the shop sheet and in the same PDF file, the pages that show the photos for each room. And I think one of these I did an example of, yeah, I put some text and a call out right here in that photo. Does that help? Does that get what you need?
Yes, and the other part was, let's say we want our own layouts. We have layouts from another software. We would like to add into, let's say, a sheet in that layout for the shop sheets. Would we be able to do that, or with the LPI Raptor?
Depending on the content of what other content you want to add, the shop paperwork that has the drawings, as it is today, we're limited to the options I've shown you. Getting additional content, whether that's customer agreements or, hey, I have this, common issue that happens once in a while, you can pre-write up in our soon-to-be released forms. Our form builder tool might solve a lot of that for you, and you would just include your form in this export, whether that's in a remodel environment. Let's say there's a customer has tile backsplash, existing tile backsplash that they want to keep. Well, your countertop's possibly going to be of different height. We're going to do our best, but I'd have a little disclaimer. It used to be in the old days, I had a separate little piece of paper I'd pull out for them to sign, and then I had to take a photo of that to include it in my template that I'd send off. Well, things like that will be built in and really smooth and intuitive and easy to use. You'll be able to customize a lot of those other things, whether it's hey, you want a chip minimizer cutout on your undermount sink. We can do that. That's an extra, $212 or whatever it is, and the customer can sign that. There can be all these kind of very fluid, flexible options that you'll be able to add in the near future. We're putting finishing touches and testing that. So stay tuned for another software update. We hope to have it out in your hands as soon as possible. Okay, and that.
Thank you very much.
I think it'll help. As you have feedback, and I'll just tell you this: our company is very much built around the success of all of you. Your feedback is essential and really important to us. So whatever those things are that you're looking for, I want to show you a great tool. So I'm going to pop back into the software here. Okay. I do recommend doing this from inside a job and not necessarily just the home screen. If you're in a job, it actually sends us a snapshot of your job. If you come to help, first of all, if you go to support, our phone numbers are right here. Okay. Also, if you go to help, contact LT3 support team. If you have a question, right, I would just do a brief title of the question here. And then maybe elaborate a little bit more about what you're trying to do. Okay. You can even attach a file. Okay. And then when you hit send, it'll send a snapshot of your job the next time you synchronize to the cloud so we can see it. So if you have a question about doing this or that, providing feedback, maybe you have a feature request. David, maybe you have a specific PDF and you want us to integrate that information into the LT3Raptor environment. You could literally just attach that PDF along with a job. And that way we have the context of what you're looking for, along with a real world job. And we do track all of this stuff. Okay, whatever those features are that you're looking for, there's a whole process we have where we're keeping eyes on all this. Or, hey, maybe you found some software bug. We're tracking these and developers are looking at these and they can see what is happening in your drawing in order to fix any of those challenges. So again, to navigate to this, go to help, contact support team, ask a question, feature requests by providing feedback, or If you have a bug, we want to know so we can get it fixed right away. If you're having an issue, probably someone else is as well. Okay. Yeah, that feedback's really important to us. So keep it coming. Okay. Give me 1 second. Let's see where we were. So we just did some paperwork. There's a lot of ways to do it. And some more features are coming soon. Now that that paperwork's done, let's imagine that your customer, let's say it's a remodel project. If it's a new build, I'm probably just flying through and we're just caring about cycle times. We just got to get that job in, right? But let's say in the example of a remodel, a customer wants to review it one more time. You know, they make another payment, whatever, however that works. Okay, we got a green light. It's time to go into production. Okay. So I might go back in the job. Also, let's say we exported the paperwork. I want to show you another thing. Job properties is where I can say, hey, this is ready for the sales team. Materials ordered. Hey, we need a revision. Okay. And when we're in the home screen, when I sync the latest version of this job and this status up here is synchronized for everybody. Okay. By default, the software will automatically synchronize. I think it's every 5 minutes. The vast majority of users find syncing nice and fluid. If you have a really robust firewall built by a IT department, let us know. We got some extra things we can help with in those odd cases. But the vast majority of companies see this as keeping everyone on the same page. So let's say the customer approved this, and for a minute, I'm a salesperson. Hey, this is ready to program. Right? They would see that. Now let's pretend I'm going to prep this for the saws. Right? So I'm that person. I click on it. Okay. Seams are revised, all that stuff we're happy with. This is going to be the fastest way to get it ready for the saw. And it used to be just a chunky process to get these. You know, in this case, I'd have 1, 2, 3 DXFs. I'd pull into AutoCAD or AlphaCam or one of those. And I'd have to get rid of all of our dimension lines, get rid of cabinet lines, separate seams. So let's see if we can make that fast and easy. So come up to this page bar or this page button here. We're going to create CNC saw page. If you have multiple materials, right? If I have 3 rooms that are Ubatuba and then the powder room and laundry room, whatever, are Decton Trillium, I'd make a CNC saw page for each material, okay? But in this case, it's all coming out of the same set of slabs. I'll hit next. You could separate the seams as much or as little as you want. I like to keep those piece labels, the numbers, and the page names. You can play with all these different settings. Here are some backsplash options. So there was a question about this earlier. You could put your splashes all aligned, longest to shortest or whatever, on a separate DXF if you'd like, okay? And there's a little preview over here that describes what both of these buttons do, okay? This is a good starting point. I think you'll get the idea. I'm gonna hit create. The software looks at those template pages. It purges the dimension lines, cabinet lines, most of them anyway. I'll show you. But now I've got one drawing space that has merged the different template pages together and purged out the things that we don't want anymore. This is a much better starting point if I'm going to a CNC saw. Also, I want to point out, if I come up to view, just for a minute, I'm going to turn on what are called the counter edge labels. Okay. Each of our edge styles, remember these are the colors or CAD layers, but we have extra information attached to them. We could turn on the edge labels that show, okay, that's a wall, that's a seam, that's an X, that's a flat polish, and this is all customizable. Okay. I can turn that off in the view here. Okay. Now we could file, save to folder. I don't need the PDFs. Now I want the CAD CAM files. Next, let's get all of them. Layout that's if you're using the nesting tool. That's something we'll talk about next week. Where are they going to go? And yes, I want to open the folder. Now, as it's working here, the software is going in, looking at the actual geometries and optimizing those files based on those CAD settings that we'll review in a little bit here. So now we have a CAD folder. All right. I have the original template pages. Okay. I'm going to take this one and, oh, it's being a little slow. I apologize. I forgot to preload this. I'm going to open this in AutoCAD so you can see what a template page, just the raw template page looks like. Then we'll open the CNC saw page. Again, sorry, I was supposed to preload this AutoCAD. My microphones are giving me a hard time before I hopped on the call. Okay, so I got a pretty dark. Oh, that's okay. I think I double clicked it. Yep, it opened twice. All right, so I'm in AutoCAD, which might be a little dark, a little hard to see, but you should be able to see. We have all of our lines here, anything I'd want to know here. And we see the different colors. So as I highlight, a really touchy mouse here, sorry. If I hover over the red, based on our settings, that's all a connected geometry. Okay, let me try it over here. They're really close. You know what? Give me a second. I'm going to switch to a little bit more of a trustworthy mouse here. Let's use our finished edge. If I hover over it, that's a joined geometry. It's a polyline based on our export settings. Okay. Next, I want to go back here. And I'm going to pop up out of the pages folder, and let's look at our CNC saw file. It's going to look a little different in AutoCAD. Oops. Let me do it like this. I'm supposed to go open with my default is, of course, LT3Raptor. I got to right click, and so it opens here. Now, because our settings, our export settings are optimized for your saw, these are just simple, closed, zero layer, meaning default CAD layer, right? This is a great file I might bring into your CAM software, okay? Everything's closed, simple, and it has those little edge labels. So I still could know, hey, do I have a miter somewhere? This is finished. Do I want to do, X, Y, and Z? And everything's numbered, so you can move things around. But I think it's really helpful to see that you can have different export settings based on the template pages, the CNC saw pages, and next week we'll see how that could be, again, different if you're using the nesting tab, okay? I'm going to pause and see if anyone has any questions about that, right? Because sometimes we want a little bit of a different workflow for one step or another in your shop. Todd, go ahead.
Does anybody use that nesting tool?
Yes.
Because I talked to my shop about it, and they all talk, oh my God, it takes forever to scan all these slabs, and sometimes we don't use them, and then by the time we do, we still have to scan it. I'm like, I just figured, because I read about it, that it puts the whole slab in there, and then you can take the CNC page, lay it over top, veining, all that stuff out in the field, and show the people, like the customers, what it would look like in the field. You know what I mean? Like, this is what your stuff would look like, before it even goes to production.
The nesting tab, I think, has a lot of power. It does not today import a corrected slab photo. Corrected meaning like a rectified photo takes any lens distortion and perspective out of a photo, which is what you would need. That's the hard part, to get a photo to come in and have it all stay in scale. Right now, the nesting tab, shops will use it to lay out non-vein matched material, tops in slabs. And it also has a really powerful set of features if you're using CNC routers. If you're using routers to finish all your edges, it'll do automatic offsets there. Okay. So we'll see that more when we talk next week, all right? Those little edge labels that I pointed out, we can turn them on or off here. Okay. Splash labels, you can turn on or off independently. If we go into settings, if we go into CAD, okay, this is where we'd see whatever settings for the template pages, CNC saw, and nesting. And we're not going to get into all the crazy nerdy stuff that much today. Really what I want to point out is here's a good starting point. If you hit, and I've shrunk my screen a little bit to optimize for the video today. Machine profiles is a good starting point on optimizing your settings. If you hit customize, which mine's cut off because I have some weird settings for video. I'm trying to zoom in on everything, right? You can hit this button and maybe you've got a Park Industries 5-axis saw. Maybe you have a Sasso. Maybe a Donatoni. Whatever those machines are, right? The French, the Thibaut saws. There's a lot of good machines out there, right? We use these as good starting points for some of these kind of, I'll call them the nerdy CAD settings, okay? Often, you'll see if you switch these machine manufacturers, a lot of these settings are the same, okay? We also have an option if you're, hey, I'm going to a CNC router, a slabsmith, okay? And these are just good starting points. You can always hit customize. It would unlock that setting. And then I could say, hey, in my template, I do or do not want those little edge labels next to the geometries, right? The little X's, the W's, and all that. Same with your CNC saw page. I can hit customize and change those, okay? Something I do think is worth knowing and understanding without getting too deep into the weeds. The DXF format was originally released in 1983, before a CNC saw or before a CNC machine in general existed. So there are some choices we have to make, and DXF isn't perfect for what we are doing, right? Simply put, I want to point out there's a difference between an exploded and polyline. In our legacy software, these were your choices. You only had exploded or polyline. Either as a completely closed shape, and it would all be the same CAD layer, or none of the lines were joined. Often, is what I had in the template pages. I think this is a really powerful one. Polylines maintain layers. And there's little descriptions over here, right? So you can kind of see, but if I come back to AutoCAD, what I often had to do some years ago, prepping drawings for machines, is I would have to manually connect different geometries. If I had a sink, sometimes those corner radii needed to be joined or redrawn, right? So if that's some of the things you need to do, Polyline maintain layers is something I would have dreamed to have some years ago, okay? Again, you can try these settings, do some testing, some workflow testing to optimize and speed things up. I think it's well worth testing, because if you find something that deletes steps in your process, it'll save you time in the long run, okay? Also, if you need help with this stuff, you can reach out to us. Our support number's right here, and a link to some online resources that we will continue to build, okay? But I just want to give everyone here an idea that you can have different settings for the original template page, the CNC saw page, and then later on we'll get into nesting. And it even gives you options for multiple exports, right? So we'll kind of save that for a separate class, okay? So I think this is really important. Excuse me. So another thing I want to show you is you can see we have all these settings here. This is for my computer, my LT3Raptor on this computer. I'm going to tell you something I used to run into. When I was working with shops using LT3Raptor, sometimes we'd have one guy that go into his settings and start changing settings just because. And it caused some workflow problems, right? So on LPI Cloud or Templator.com, they're kind of the same thing. From a marketing standpoint, we're moving towards LPICloud.com. Okay? If we go to this website, I can see all these jobs. Okay. Whatever the latest version of that job, I can click into it. We could create jobs. So if you have someone at the office that creates a job number, name, materials, all those kind of specifications before a templater shows up, you could do all that on LPI Cloud. Right? We could see our different measure pages. We could even check additional dimensions if we need. This is new. This is just added earlier this year. Okay. We could see the photos. Oh, hey, wait a minute. This guy hasn't fully attached this panel yet. I know, because it's me. All right. I want to put a big red arrow here. This is just taped on. That's not really installed yet. Okay. You could do those annotations and things in the cloud, right? I don't really need to say that. Company profile. Now, if you have to be an administrator on your LT3Raptor account to see these settings, okay? This is where you'd upload your logos. I like to mark a staging location, right? Instead of just it saying business, I recommend taking your address and calling it a staging location. That way it shows up in your paperwork. Here's where you add your team members. And really what I want to touch on some today is a lot of these settings we see in the software itself, you also can control on LPI Cloud. These settings then push down to your computer. So if you have that one templater out in the field that changes settings just because, I could say, hey, on my template export, I want a, let's say whatever machine it is, I want to customize it. I want the polyline maintain layers. And here's a button that's really useful. Use company settings. If we check this box in the top right corner, the next time your field LT3Raptor users go to settings, they'll see what the settings are, but they're all grayed out. Let's do that. I'll go home. I'll hit sync. Upload and download everything, right? Here's our project that we were just in. If I go to settings, notice everything's grayed out. I can see what the information is. I can see what it was set to, but an admin has locked those settings to keep everything consistent. Okay. So when I was doing some work with a fabricator, multiple saws and routers, I was doing workflow testing, right? I'd find settings that I liked. Then I come in the cloud, make sure everything matched. I used this checkbox. I gave the templaters an opportunity to sync. In fact, I had a group chat and I'd text them, hey, everybody sync. Let me know when you've synchronized your jobs. It would push the settings that I wanted onto all their computers. And then I might come uncheck this again because I wanted to do more workflow testing or try this and try that. Or the programmers had some custom job that had something interesting and they tweak their settings accordingly. Okay. Kind of in the weeds for some of that, but I just want to make sure you know, use company settings will push those settings to everyone on your team. Okay. Same with paperwork settings. But something else that I want to go into is job workflow. So by default, a lot of these companies, when we first install LT3Raptor, it's a pretty short list that we see in the home screen. If I come back over here and I go back to home, okay, This list of the job status, we start with it pretty simple. And some fabricators keep it really simple. Measure, cut, pay. And that's all they want. If you have a bigger team, more steps in your process, you might want more options here. Okay. This is that life cycle of the job. This gets rid of those nightmares I used to have of emailing a revision of a file to a shop, and then they would grab the old file instead of the new one, right? This can kind of track that life cycle of the job, and you can even, reorder them as needed. Okay, so that's your job workflows where you set your status, put whatever text you want, whatever colors you want there. Edge styles. And this is another thing I want to make sure you see and you're familiar with. Okay, you also can have multiple sets of edge styles. Here, the analogy is, especially if you're using a lot of router workflow, I've got 3 centimeter tooling, I've got 2 centimeter tooling, I've got stack lamb 4 centimeter, I've got porcelain tooling. You could have different sets of edges where a lot of the colors are similar, right, from a template standpoint, but your cutting strategies can start getting really advanced here. Okay, but simply put, right, we see this list of these colors. This is mainly our default color set, which is very different than our legacy colors. That's not an accident. We can revise or reorder these. Okay. We even added a preview button earlier this year, so you can see how they'll lay out on the LT3 screen when you're using it in the field. Okay. But let's just, for fun, let's pretend and add a style. Okay. And I'll go old school and do a bull nose. Okay. And that's the name of the layer. It's automatically going to take the first letter and put that as our edge code. Some fabricators will even use like tooling codes. Like if you have ADI tool sets, for example, a 3cm bullnose might be a V30. Okay. So I could put that there if we wanted, right? Let's use B. Okay. Or maybe BL. Okay. Now down here, the layer type, this is really important. This is what tells the software, hey, is that a finished edge, unfinished, or a reference? Typically like cabinet lines are reference. Okay. Each of these has a subgroup. It's a standard finished edge. We don't need to select the sublayer type. Is it a miter or a stack lamb edge, like a 2cm where we build it up to 4cm, for example? I'd use this. Or is it a cutout? Actually, the software kind of cares about cutouts. Okay. Unfinished, regular unfinished wall edge. Is it a splash? Are they holes for sink clips or faucet holes? And seams. Again, the software knows the difference between each of these. Reference, a regular reference will just get erased on your CNC saw page, unless we're using reference keep. It'll keep that geometry. And I actually did this in our job here. I wanted to keep a portion of the center line. So I actually, and I didn't really talk about it when we were doing it, but to go into this, I actually modified this line segment to be what's called a reference keep color. Right, so if there's some other geometry I needed to have, like, maybe I'd probably do this a little differently, but like I need to see that where the dishwasher goes. Now those reference keep geometries will carry through in your CNC saw page. Okay. So these layer types are really the foundation of LT3Raptor's superpower, and that is that CAD intelligence and that streamlining of things. It just requires you put in some work up in the front of the process, and that work pays off over and over again, each and every single job you do. Okay. Here we pick your CAD color numbers and all that. And next week, we'll start talking about some of these settings, but I want to introduce you to this idea of where your settings live in the cloud so that you can manage the whole team, keep everybody on the same page. Small shops are now in a better position to grow. Those medium shops, 8 years ago, I can tell you, it used to be a big nightmare The shop would have to entice all the templates to come in one morning with coffee and donuts so we could update your CAD colors. It was kind of a manual, chunky process. So it's really easy to do now. Okay. Any questions about LPI Cloud? We will get into more next week, but any questions about what we talked about so far? Okay. All right. Next thing I want to do is I really should have maybe gotten another computer going here today, but I'm going to plug into this printer. And let's show you one more thing. I didn't have the printer plugged into USB, so I think it cycled power off on me, so it has to warm up, unfortunately. Let me pause for a minute. Any other broad questions before I show you what the StoneTags look like? Okay. So I'm plugged in over here. I'm going to see if I can do this kind of remotely. All right. So I'm going to turn on here. It's going to be a little weird because there's a big delay now that I'm just looking at the meeting. Okay. So we've got all our tops in here. You kind of saw a preview of this with that job manifest PDF. Print, countertop tag. And because the software understands the different shapes of every geometry, it's going to analyze, say, hey, what do we want? In this case, I don't need the CNC saw page. I just want to export all of these, hit next. Here's all our different rooms, our different tops. If there's some kind of call out I need, this is a new feature called the create spotlight label. So maybe I want a spotlight on this, see how this one's selected. Hit next. What spotlight do I want? I want to maybe call out if maybe there's a return or something I had in this back corner. And there's not, but if I wanted to have some kind of call out, it's going to generate all those StoneTags. And we have different paper sizes that you could use for the countertop tag, edge tags, splash tags are a little smaller. And let's go ahead and print them. So in just a few seconds, the software can, because it understands the drawing, it'll separate all those parts. And I apologize if you get kind of motion sickness here. I'm going to go to a different mobile camera here. Hopefully this works. There we go. And with very little effort, no snipping tools required, it will start printing out those tags. Just like that. Okay. And it even has our little QR codes in the bottom corner. So when these go on your tops, your office staff or your production staff, I should say, can just take a phone, aim at that QR code, and with an LPI Cloud login, they get a mobile-friendly version of LPI Cloud, or they can look at the dimensions, job photos, any information they need. And installers can even aim at that. As soon as we have that forms feature coming out very soon, installers could get final signatures for that job and even take final install photos. And it's all collected in that one environment for you. Okay. So we think StoneTags has been saving shops a lot of time and energy. We're getting great feedback on that. If you need information, let us know. Okay. We've gone over quite a bit. I want to pause and see if anyone has any other questions. Okay. So what I'll do next is I'm going to grab my mouse. It's over here on the wrong side of the room. Just real quick, I'm going to recap some of the things that we talked about because we did go over quite a bit. I'd like to recommend that you require from the field template team, require production-ready drawings. With an internet connection, that could be a hotspot on the phone. Some smart shops even, as those tablets die, they get tablets that have LTE built in from the field. Templater can say, this measure is complete, it's ready for sales, ready for whoever, and you're off to the races, okay? But require those production-ready drawings. It really eliminates guesswork later in the process. We talked about how to make some updates to those drawings in the office, maybe changing seams. You can use drop-ins to revise sink cutouts, things like that. Once we had the drawings in a good shape, we exported all the paperwork. That's typically the shop drawings, your job packet, and we looked at the manifest. After that, we did a CNC saw page. This is where it merges all our different measure pages into one drawing space and purges the things that we don't need going to our CAM software for the saw. Okay. We also took a look at some of the LPI Cloud features and settings. We looked at job workflow really quickly. I wanted to point out those edge styles to you, that the edge types matters, and that's the underlying framework that allows the CAD intelligence, the template intelligence features to just streamline your work. Okay? And then we finished with printing some StoneTags, right? Nice and quick and easy. It's the fastest way to track parts through your shop. Okay? And next week, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into some of the opportunities, especially if you have a CNC router that you're using to finish everything. There's some automation that we can do there. And so we'll go into that and some of those more advanced outputs a little bit. Okay. Any other questions?
I did have one question. Can you hear me, Anthony?
Yes, I hear you.
With the StoneTags, how do we go about getting tags? And I'm assuming it requires a special, printer and everything for all that.
Yes, we are a Epson dealer for the specific printer that makes these tags, and we have our own special waterproof, removable labels. So we could have. What I'll do is, you're with Solid Image. I'll make a note. How about we reach out to you and get you more information on that?
Yeah, that'd be great. You can email me, call me, whatever you got.
Okay. Yeah, I was working in a shop using these. We had some really big commercial projects with pops going on different floors. We had this 28-story big complex job, and just tracking things as it went on the elevator, what A-frame needed to land on which floor and all that. It just saved time just with the logistics right there. So, and at a glance, it's really easy for someone in the shop to be like, here it is. I don't have wet, soggy paperwork and that kind of stuff. There's still a place for that, but information at a glance. Making the design information, the design intent, visible for the whole team is a big goal for us, right? It just eliminates guesswork and errors, right? Cool. I'll hang on for another minute or two if anyone else has any other questions. We'll probably stop the recording in just a minute. I do want to thank all of you for your time. We really appreciate every one of you as customers, and we are here to help you succeed. Todd,
Where do you get those stone tags? I'm sorry, I missed part of that. You said
You're all good.
It's like you're printing out on your printer.
Yeah, we have a
printer.
It's a specific printer, and we have specially formulated rolls, and the printer prints the waterproof rolls and cuts each sticker to the correct length.
So in other words, like I'm going to take that sticker and put it on the finished piece of stone.
Yes. If
And
it's a
then, like,
fragile piece of stone.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if it's a fragile piece of stone, like a soft marble, you guys know how some of the quartzites are really hard in some spots and really flaky and soft in others. If it's a honed finish, like this kitchen over here, we're going to put a suede countertop in. I'd recommend putting like a frog tape layer down first.
Right.
Okay, because it's a really, it's actually a dual layer glue, I believe, or something like that on our stickers. So we do our best to make them durable so they stay on if you're using a line polisher. Like a Comenduli is really good at ripping these labels off, right? But not be on so strong that it leaves any residue behind. We err on the side of protect your part, okay? Right. And next week we'll actually do the thing where we'll take a mirrored page to make your stickers, and then you can put them on the back, right? For those fragile parts. Okay. Todd, what company is it that you're with? Maybe I gotta have someone reach out to you as well.
AAA Hellenic. I just see the guys come in every morning. Everything's on carts. They're walking around, they're looking, they're moving stuff around. And most of the fabricators just point them out to whatever they're looking for anyway. But if they weren't there and they all had stickers on everything, you wouldn't have to think about it.
It would be a lot easier. There's a lot of time I used to spend some years ago with a clipboard walking around a big shop floor. It'd say LFS, looking for stuff. Right. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we'll get you information on that. Okay.
Yep.
Otherwise, as any of you have questions, reach out to us. Again, support, just help and support. Our phone numbers are right there. Some of you have my direct phone number. I'm often in trainings or traveling or something. I can't always get right to you. I'll do my best to help. But yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and hope you all have a great day.